Anyone who knows what a steam train is knows of the Flying Scotsman. It is as much a staple of railway history as the Spitfire is to the Second World War, so its celebrity status needs little introduction here. While we're used to seeing the engine touring the country in various guises, be it LNER apple green, BR green, or wartime black, we only ever see the engine in its Class A3 form. When first built, the Flying Scotsman was actually an LNER Class A1. And that is what we have here, but this isn't just any A1 Flying Scotsman. This is the Locomotion Models version produced in partnership with Hornby, depicting the locomotive in the 1924 British Empire exhibition condition. This was one of the newly tooled Hornby A1 models produced for the locomotive centenary, and was purchased by my dad as he didn't yet have a model of the Scotsman and this was his variant of choice. Flying Scotsman models are a dime a dozen in the hobby, ranging from the ancient trying ones to top spec models, with prices ranging from less than £50 for an older model to over £1,000 for gold-plated live steam examples. That then crazily makes this not even middle of the road in terms of price, at £250. In this economy, a £150 Flying Scotsman model would be dear, so how is this one worth £250? Hopefully that will become obvious, though at the rate inflation of model prices is going, this may soon be worth as much as Scotsman's last overhaul. So, what do you get for your money? A tasteful deviation from Hornby's normal boxes for starters. With the Locomotion Models logo on this as well, there's a 100 years centenary emblem and a wonderful line drawing of the locomotive, though the tender is missing. Some information on the locomotive and this precise version is included on the rear. Inside is a small booklet containing even more detail for the avid enthusiast, covering the locomotive, event and the model itself. Speaking of, this is how it looks. It's very fine and just as eye-catching as the real thing must have looked 100 years ago. Side by side with photos of the engine at the British Empire exhibition show, this is a very accurate depiction. Most striking are the white linings on the driving and leading bogie wheels. A nice pairing with the white boiler lining on the exquisite shade of LNER apple green, fitted in a far more satin finish than we saw on the 85th anniversary Mallard model. Other eye-pleasing details include the black and white lining on the tender, the red lining and silver details on the tender frames, and the nice crest on the cab side. From this view you can also see the folding cab floor, cab doors, and the brand new tender coupling method, which is a fantastic innovation that avoids hideous, obvious wiring. The front of the locomotive is beautiful too, with red lining along the die-cast running plate and white lining around the buffer beam. The buffers are sprung, and all handrails are thin with details picked out on the smokebox door, including a separately fitted smokebox dart and lamp irons. The fitted details continue atop the boiler, with movable sliding vents on the cab roof, and once again there is some absolutely amazing picked out cab detail in the interior. The driving wheels are made of turned metal with white centres and lining applied very nicely. A splendid pair of nameplates are fitted, though I can't quite feel whether they are etched or not. The more you look at this engine, the more intricacies become apparent, and I could talk for hours listing them all off. Inside is a 5-pole motor and a firebox flicker, while the 21-pin DCC socket and space for a 28mm round speaker are housed in the A1 tender, which, as you can see, has lovely fitted coal railings. Besides the brake rigging, there's no other underside tender detail. The coal load is once again removable and reveals a few moulded details hidden underneath in the coal bay. The rear buffer beam comes with a pre-fitted brake pipe and coupling hook, and this time we find a brake pipe pre-fitted to the front buffer beam as well. The coupling hook is not fitted but can be found in the accessory pack, along with some more brake rigging, finer pipework, ladders, painted crew figures, a set of fine scale wheels, among other things. The engine comes in at 378 grams thanks to the metal wheels and die-cast running plate, which is only 30 grams heavier than the 85th anniversary Mallard, which is not as much as I was expecting. The driving wheel gauges come in at 14.5mm consistently, which is spot on. Overall, the engine is a beauty that throws punches with its looks. Well detailed, well designed. If its performance matches up to this is going to be a home run for Hornby. Let's see how the Scotsman flies. Here's another quick demonstration of how the tender unclips and clips together with the loco. At low speeds, this is a smooth runner, the 5-pole motor performing perfectly. There's no problems with passing over ball joins. Nor is there any in handling of points. So far, it's performing faultlessly. Unlike the Hornby Mallard, we have a nice, consistent firebox flicker here when the locomotive moves, with a reliable glow at any operating speed. While this incarnation of Scotsman predates the 100-mile-an-hour run, it's time to see what speeds it can hit down on the track. To do this, we'll have to hand the regulator over to our train racing driver. Some say he once got a helicopter wedged in a tunnel, and that he once wrote off a dynamometer car in a speed test of the old Smoky Joe Pug. All we know is he's called the Grunt. There he is, on the footplate of the famous engine, no doubt hoping to do a better job at the controls than the Strathspey Railway. And she's off at 50% speed, rounding the bend and onto the second board. Down through the transfer halt and round by the farm, swinging around the last bend and across the line. For a comparison, here is my now aged Railroad Flying Scotsman model, minus the second tender for fairness. The astute among you may realise that this is the exact same Scotsman model from my Thomas Creator Collective days, who was almost infamously thrown off a collapsing bridge in the episode Brother Bother. God knows how it still works, but thankfully it does. Anyway, off goes this version of Scotsman. A lot slower than the Empire edition. This is a slower runner than I remember, lumbering around without much of a care in the world. And now she's passing by the farm, heading back in towards where the station will eventually be built, guiding herself across the line. So the Hornby / Locomotion Models Empire edition of the Flying Scotsman did the lap in 15.85 seconds, which is 63.6 miles an hour. That puts it right between the two A4s, and that's really not bad. That's pretty much on the money for how fast an A1 would go. So, by comparison, the Hornby Railroad Flying Scotsman in its A3 form did the lap in 21.45 seconds, which is 47 miles an hour, which puts it right at the bottom of the LNER pack. That, again, is about 5.5 seconds slower than its newer counterpart, bearing in mind the Railroad version is coming on about 20 years old as well. So, the Empire edition of the Flying Scotsman has more oomph than your average Scotsman model, all down to that 5-pole skew motor, no doubt, and it still runs smoothly, no bumps, no issues, no rattles, and is a really great performer. So, the good gearing is just a cherry on top of a very nice mechanical cake. Right, back to the Empire Scotsman, and let's get her coupled up to some coaches. first time coupling achieved. That was nice and gentle. Off we go! I don't know if Scotsman ever pulled trains in its Empire exhibition decor, or whether the decoration was just for show. If you know any more details about this than I do, then please mention them in the comments below. Possible historical inaccuracies aside, this looks awesome strolling around the layout. The instructions confirm that this has bearings on the wheels, and the sprung bogie suggests a similar pickup arrangement to the 85th anniversary Mallard I reviewed recently. So paired with the 5-pole motor, this makes for a marvellous runner. A bit more weight from a die-cast boiler would have been nice, but hey ho. This take on Scotsman was a star attraction 100 years ago, and now is again, albeit 1/76th of the size. Let's review how well this Scotsman shines. For livery and decoration, I am blown away by all the attention to detail and lining on this. Everywhere you look, each new angle flashes something new to capture the eye. It's a joy to behold, static and in motion. Hornby have truly knocked it out of the park here. For details and features, the new tender coupling, die-cast running plate and firebox flicker help elevate this above your average Scotsman model, as does the modelling of the A1 tender. As with the decoration, the more time you spend with this model, the more you see and the more you appreciate. It captures Scotsman's celebrity status at the exhibition marvellously. In terms of quality, the die-cast running plate, stocky 5-pole motor, pickup arrangement and general build lead to a heavy, smooth, quiet model of high quality. While there's scope to have the boiler die-cast, I have had no issues with this model. Everything is working and functioning as intended. Performance. This was exceptional straight out the box. Smooth, quiet, gliding over points and baseball joins. This loco was reasonably well geared whether you want it to potter about a yard or give it the full beans with a long passenger train. It couldn't have impressed me any more if it tried. And finally, on to price. I've sung its praises so far, but is it really worth the full £250? To the avid Scotsman enthusiast, with nothing to fault, this will be a fine addition to their collection. But for the more generalist railway modeller who just wants any Scotsman for their layout, this probably isn't the model for them. This is a celebration of a very specific point in the locomotive's life, which isn't to the taste of many but only to the few. So the high price is necessary for presenting this niche version of the engine. With that in mind, there's nothing here to indicate Hornby has cut corners or skimped out. The model is solid with die-cast running plate, working firebox LED and a new tender connection. What you get backs up what you're asked to pay. On the whole, I'm impressed with the model, and if it was me who purchased this instead of my dad, I'd not be disappointed. That's a solid 5 out of 5, making this an essential item for any Scotsman buff wanting a version of this locomotive as exhibited at the British Empire exhibition. And this could also be for anyone wanting the engine in a unique modern tooling. So what do you think of this new Scotsman model? Is it worth the money, or are Hornby trying to make an extra penny on the Scotsman centenary bandwagon? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you for another video very soon. Thanks for watching and take care.